welcome to another episode of the MHR Podcast, where we discuss all things in the world of work for HR, payroll and finance. I'm Emma.
And I'm Andy.
How are you, Andy?
I'm okay. I'm all right.
Can you believe we're nearly halfway through the year already?
It's crazy. June. It's June.
We are flying.
It's good. I mean, we started this year with a promise to do one every week. We've got there. I think things have changed around us a bit. We're in a nice environment. We're steamrolling ahead with these podcasts.
We are steamrolling ahead. I'm proud of us. Proud of us.
So what are we going to talk about this week?
So, one thing that keeps coming up in the news recently, and I think there's been some kind of comments and kind of gurgles about it in government as well, is trying to get more people back into the office.
I heard those government gurgles.
And I love a gurgle. I know it's something that we've very lightly touched on before, but something that I don't think we've really considered before is actually the office environment that we want to create to make, kind of attract people back into the office. But not even necessarily just that, but just create the sense of a more kind of balanced hybrid working option and giving that option there. So what I wanted to have a talk about today, as I say, is looking at kind of office location and office environment and what businesses can do from a strategic point of view to make it more of an attractive thing.
Okay. I suppose it's a nice timely topic as well, because we had a lot of discussions during lockdown about business practice and where people should be working and shifting trends. And I think we're at a point now where the economy and the world has got to a point now where we're evaluating how we want business to return into an office space. So there's a lot more talk about that and what businesses think that looks like and how it should be done in a new world.
No, absolutely.
Okay.
So as we like to do on this show, I've been just doing some research and I've come across a few interesting articles on the perception of what a good office location is and what it can mean both for a business as well as the employee.
I just wanted to You've thrown them in here. This is very organised of you.
I'm an organised person, what can I say?
Okay.
So I just wanted to jump straight in. So as we all know, kind of deciding where to locate a business has always, been really important.
Yep.
Location can play a really huge role in attracting and retaining the best employees.
Yeah.
Many of whom try to, keep a close eye on where they're based to optimise the kind of work-life balance. Yeah. Again, a really important topic at the moment as we kind of get back into normality.
Yeah.
And ultimately, good location decisions can really boost a company's long-term performance as well.
Yep.
Because there's so many indicating factors there. Whereas poor ones can cost millions in lost talent, if you're not attracting the right people, productivity, and as a result, capital as well. So there's so many things that you need to kind of consider when you're looking for a location to be and how you set up that location as well.
Okay.
And in this article that I read, there was something that they referred to as the 7 motivators, which I thought was really interesting. I've shot it through to you. So I thought what we could do today is just kind of have a read through them and discuss what we think.
So these are the motivators that businesses need to consider for why they choose the locations they do, or what their choice of location means for their employees or the business.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, well, shall we have a quick beverage and we can crack on into it?
Let's do it.
The MHR Podcast. Other podcasts are available, but why would you?
Come on then, Emma, take me through the 7 motivators for businesses and locations.
So the first one that we've got on here, and it's something that I've just touched on previously, is attracting and retaining talent.
Okay.
So something that the article says here that tends to mean a city centre location, because you tend to attract a lot of young and sort of international people, and it tends to be more of an accessible location as well, as opposed to...
more people are in city centres, or more people go to larger cities for larger work opportunities, perhaps?
Yeah,
more established businesses
there's
tend to be based in city centres?
Yeah, I think there's the option for a more diverse range of kind of organisations to choose from in a city centre, because that's effectively what they're geared up for.
Yeah.
But I would also kind of counter that. So we as a business MHR, we're based just outside of Nottingham, and we're based in a business park.
Yep.
Business parks are becoming obviously much more common. We have a lot of green space as well.
Yes, stunning.
So I also think that there's gives and takes, I think, for each thing. What is important to note, though, is that we are still relatively close to a city. And I do think that that's important in terms of the kind of talent that we attract.
Absolutely.
And I think that's likewise for any business. Yeah. Business parks don't generally tend to be sort of in the middle of nowhere.
And I suppose businesses also want to kind of, if they're thinking about cities that they're kind of aligned with, they want to stick where maybe their roots are, but they want to position themselves around that city that has access to that talent.
Exactly.
So take an example of a business that's maybe just outside a city, but is on a nice kind of commuter belt to other regions in the UK. So, okay, I'm not in the deep depths of, one side of city. I'm in the between of actually maybe 3-4 towns. That is, I've got accessible routes. There's main roads coming all in this direction. So people see it as a nice, viable commute option.
Yeah, effectively, we need to make it, an accessible and viable, kind of employment option.
Yeah. I suppose some businesses as well rely on their location for the relationships they build with other businesses. Now, I mean, if you're very digital or you're very tech orientated, it might not be so much of a problem in the physical space. But if you're maybe retail or if you're a small independent business, and your success is kind of a lot more weighted on the relationships you build with other like businesses, so you can kind of share those resources when you're starting up in your early stage. It's good to be in those kind of like innovation hubs, or it's good to be in an area where all these independent businesses in that area come together. They share the ideals. We support each other.
It's finding your tribe, isn't it? And I think that we need to take that same mentality with businesses as we do with people.
Yeah.
We surround ourselves with friends who are like-minded, and I think in business we very much follow the same suit, really.
Or you find the businesses that are so like you just poach all the talent from them because you move next door.
I mean, there is also that as an option. It's a cheeky one. But it's there. It is a cheeky one.
Okay, so attracting and retaining talent. Okay, so city centres are good for that.
Yeah.
Okay, location is good for that because it's about its accessibility. Okay, what about how businesses can attract talent with the facilities within their workplace? And we've talked about it before. We joked actually in previous episodes about things that businesses have that we think are kind of cheesy, like pool tables or ping pong tables or beer fridges. The things that it actually has to go a lot deeper than that. Does a business have some really if you're working in a particular sector, does that business actually have cutting edge technology or rooms or spaces that support the work you're doing in that field? I mean, we're quite lucky. We've got some amazing facilities where we are, so we can really do some impressive work and create amazing content. But other businesses need to pick a space that allows them to have that, so they can say, not only is our USP to you that we provide the services or products that you want, but also we are the people with the space to create the things that are pushing the future of this world.
Yeah. Your location in your office is effectively a physical representation of who you are as a business and who you want to be as a business. And that's a really great example of why it's so important to present that.
And I suppose it's not just about the work as well, it's about well-being, it's about social element. Like you've mentioned, we have access to a park next door, Country Park. It's beautiful. I value that greatly. I love that in my day, when I'm having a break, I can go and have a walk around that. It does wonders for my well-being. So we might take it for granted because it's there, it's a public thing, but it's a huge benefit, a part of my kind of work life. And I think a lot of people will look for that when they're looking for a job, but they don't sometimes just look for the money. They don't just look for the location in regards to the commute, but they look for what can that location give me during their work routine.
Oh, exactly. So another one that we've got on here that is more talking about it from a business sense is looking at the pounds and pence. So considering your real estate costs.
Yeah.
So this is the second largest expense that a business has after labour costs. So thinking of your kind of fixed assets. So you need to ensure that the real estate that you have as a business is efficient for what you need. And this actually kind of invites the argument of city versus being outside of the city. The kind of the taxation and the cost that is incurred of being able to be situated in the city can sometimes be counterbalanced with the fact that you can go to a business park that sits outside of the centre, have a much bigger space that will cost you less overall. And again, I think this sits in, there's no right or wrong answer to this, I have to stress, but I think that again comes down to the perception that you want to attain for your business.
Yeah.
You know, I think kind of city centre living, if you like, really suits certain industries. It really suits certain businesses.
Yeah.
Whereas there are others, certainly those that require that kind of growth space, where sitting outside of the centre will not be to a detriment of their growth opportunities, and actually will give them the space to do so.
Yeah.
And I think it's an interesting one because, like, for example, I think of friends that live in London and work in London, and they adore it. You know, they work in the big skyscrapers in the city centre, and it's the whole culture and the whole lifestyle that go with it. And that's what the organisations that they work for want to represent. That's what they want to create for their teams.
Yeah.
That's something that scares me personally, the thought of having to, work in a really bustling city centre all the time. But it's interesting how your way a workplace can also effectively shape your social experience as well.
Company's culture can be tied to their location, right? What's their company's identity? Some businesses tie their identity to the region of the UK or the world that they may be in because it's like, this is our culture, this is who we are. But I suppose it's a gamble, isn't it? Everything's a gamble. Typically, most companies, to be successful, want to grow. And that means usually with people as well. So do you tie yourself into a place that gives you the premium location and the heart of everything, so you've got the most opportunities, but can't afford those extra people to come in? Or do you put yourself somewhere where you can afford to grow the team and grow space? And does that come at the detriment of the talent opportunities? It doesn't have to be. I think there's a middle ground. So it's not it's not black or white. But I think there is a spectrum here, isn't there? Premium real estate / room for growth. And where do companies want to sit in the spectrum? This is cheaper, but I've got more space. This is really expensive, and I can't afford to grow the team. Where do I want to go?
It's so important when making those decisions to consider your business strategy, what are your growth plans and all that kind of thing when you're factoring in kind of where you want to buy. And kind of pulling on what we said towards the beginning as well, it also factors in what kind of talent you want to pull through, in terms of where you're based. So it's interesting to see it from both sides of the coin. And I think businesses need to ensure that they've considered all of these points before making that decision. And also from kind of a hybrid working point of view, and modern working as it is now, is still considering that. Are you making your location accessible to those that want that hybrid working to be an option?
Yeah.
And are you catering your office facilities to suit those that want to work in hybrid? Or are you building it up so that you have a purely, working from the office space?
Well, here's another thing as well. If you commute, right? Commuting is increasingly more and more expensive depending on how you do it.
Oh, it is.
Obviously, cost of living crisis, no one could afford petrol or diesel, right? It was becoming a lot more less affordable to come into work every day, but we wanted to, so we did, right? But also, what if you get the bus? What if you get the train into work? That's getting more and more expensive. And you pick a premium location where actually your train route, say you're working in the middle of London and you will live just outside and you have to get a commute, that's suddenly very expensive. Say you commute to London 3 times a week. That's a very expensive way of doing it. And actually, does an employee go, you know what, I'd love to do that, I just can't afford to do it. The wage that you're going to offer me and what what it's going to cost me, I feel I can get more value working in a different location.
And that's a really, really important point to consider as well, and something that I think is moving more businesses out of city centres for that reason. And I think it's probably a conversation beyond ours today, but that brings into question the whole kind of city centre infrastructure. And how it all kind of connects and work that needs to be done to make city centres a much more viable and attractive location for businesses to settle in.
Well, I can see on the future point you've talked a bit about that kind of thing, so we'll come on to it. But what's point 3 then?
So the point 3 that we've got, I think this is something that you've touched on previously, actually, is kind of that cluster environment. So having a network of connected businesses around you. And that opens the world up to a bigger talent pool, as you say, cheeky monkeys might be poaching, but the point is that there's a general attraction to that area for that particular job type.
Yep.
And likewise, as a result of that, you're sitting in an area where there is an economy at scale in accordance with your kind of sector and your specialism as well.
I think this is a really interesting point. So in jobs I've worked in before, I really got to learn about how smaller organisations, smaller enterprises and entrepreneurs relied on this kind of cluster mentality, and also how larger enterprises relied on it also to kind of learn from what the new startups were doing, and then also kind of position themselves as a brand to be the company that was kind of educating the new generation of people how to do business, for two reasons. One, because they wanted to see small businesses start up and enrich the market, but two, to go, you're a great business, you've got a great idea, but you know, us big, huge organisation, we want that. Let's buy you in. Let's expand what we can do so we can learn from what you're doing. And the thing that I found in like previous roles, in a few roles I've done now actually, is that building an incredibly valuable network of like-minded either entrepreneurs if you're a startup, or you know, a network of chiefs or a network of other directors or board members in and around the city and the region that you work in helps give you such a broad, better perspective of how business is run by like-minded businesses, so you can share ideas, because it's not about who's doing it better, it's about learning from each other. Because as soon as you start working together, you start changing the direction and the dynamic of how the city and the employment and the attraction works, and you give it momentum. Whereas if you start trying to compete against each other, it just falls apart. So especially for like, you know, businesses, every business has to start somewhere. When you've got new entrepreneurial talent, maybe it's coming from the university, maybe it's coming from, you know, graduates coming in, starting their own businesses. Having that network and having businesses work with them shows where they can go to, but also creates a hub. Like I think, you know, talking biasly, Nottingham's quite good for that.
Yeah.
It's a very,
definitely.
it supports start-up and growth businesses very, very well. And I think the businesses, larger, successful, bigger businesses around there feed back into that. And I think clusters are integral, because graduates, talented young people who are pushing forward the future of business and how businesses work are attracted to where things are happening. They're not going to take the risk on the places where businesses don't feel like they have a foothold in the local economy or have a say in how they can shift it. So I think it's a huge, huge factor. You don't go to a city you know has a terrible reputation for starting up a business. The first thing you do is go to a city. It's like, oh, they've got a network group there. I'm going to go there to that networking thing every Thursday. I'm going to meet them. I can get a contact to the Chamber of Commerce. I can get a contact at this Small Business Federation. I can get a contact with a university who's going to give me some grants so I can start up my business. I'm going to get a contact with these university contacts so I can get some talent in. They can give it like, I just get the support I need, because it's a scary unknown field otherwise. And equally, to go on my rant, the bigger businesses love to build the same relationships but on the other end, so they can feed down into that. And then, you know, what I've found is a lot of businesses use like employability programs of universities or different institutions. So the talent that's coming, the really talented people that are coming from universities have a direct route into these businesses, so the culture can keep updating, so that retention can keep going, so that attraction's there, so your new ways of thinking are influencing that established business. So yeah, clusters, I think that's a really interesting point.
And I think that feeds nicely onto the last point that I want to bring up in this today, is looking at that city dynamism as well. And I think you fed into this point really well already. But, you know, we have kind of certain devolutions of kind of government responsibilities and funding and that kind of thing. So, as you say, certainly in Nottingham, and I know in other cities that I've worked in the past, that there are a lot of kind of grants and stimulus to businesses to really grow there. So, you know, so it's something that it says in this article here is looking for those opportunities, looking for those urban centres that are looking to incentivise businesses to kind of work in the centre and build that infrastructure and look at the opportunities that you can kind of gain from that. And I think that's a nice kind of way of, just bringing in that infrastructure that we need to make that work, and creating that hub, as you say, creating that kind of collaborative space where we can all focus on our growth together. And I think that kind of attitude and approach also reflects back onto your employees as well. If they can see that positivity, that collaboration, and the creation of that positive workplace in a growing area, it gives that reassurance that we've got stability here, we've got opportunity here, and I think that's quite a nice way to wrap up what we've been talking about. I think focus on kind of area of where you're at from a talent acquisition and retention opportunity. Look at it from a kind of accessibility point of view as well. So looking at commutability, looking at kind of what's around from a facility point of view as well. And then a big thing that we've been discussing today is also looking at kind of the macro environment around you. So clusters of businesses that you have, the area in which you're in, where there are kind of government stimulus and incentivization opportunities to really pull in as much kind of advantageous opportunity as possible.
There's also one other thing that I can see you've listed here is not all businesses are office based.
No.
And I know obviously it's very easy just to think about it because we work in an office. A lot of businesses do that work in the world that we work in. But some people literally use their location as a base before they fly off everywhere else. Mm-hmm. So in some ways you have to factor in that depending on the type of business that you work in, depending on how it's structured or the type of work you do, what sector you're in, your physical location can only serve so much. The rest is actually about the locations you can engage with. So, yeah, I think you've almost got to see your location as a pinpoint, and it's going, well, how can we not let that hinder us how we communicate? Mm-hmm. You know, we talk about it till we're blue in the face, but there's software out there that allows employees to communicate and connect with each other, whether you're working in the field, or in a lorry, or in a warehouse that's 50 miles away from the central office. Like, the location is key because people need to know you're working there, how you're working, but they also need to know that just because you're 50, 100, 500, 5,000 miles away doesn't mean that I can't talk to you instantly and get work done as fast as I want to. So location does have a huge impact on that as well.
That's a very, very good point. We need to ensure that we've got that infrastructure in place, not only for those who wish to be in the office and have hybrid, but also remote workers with the assurance that they have a hub and a base to always go back to.
And someone like us that you can chat to and have fun with. That's the main thing that people look for, isn't it?
I mean, that's just a wonderful bonus, is it not?
Yeah. We've got an email from producer or assistant to the producer, Tom.
Oh.
Yeah. So, hello there. This is a message from producer Lee and assistant producer. He'd put that in caps. Producer
Has to
Tom.
make that clear, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Bless him.
Here are your list of weird office features that we want you to discuss.
Oh.
Okay, right.
Oh, hello.
It looks like I don't know if you've got a list as well, but we've got a list here of weird things that offices apparently have.
Oh.
So, you ready for this? All right, then?
I think so.
Right, so I don't know if you've seen this in an office before, but a treehouse meeting room and a gingerbread house meeting room containing a colouring wall and a hobbit hole for quiet areas. Have you seen that?
I mean, a gingerbread house meeting room would suit me down to the ground, personally.
Can you imagine that? Sorry, Greg, I just have to stop you there. I know we're in crippling debt, but can we take this back to the treehouse meeting room, please? I need a private space.
I'm going in the hobbit hole. You've stressed me out.
Look, Greg, I know you're my line manager, and I know you have to log this formally. So could we take this to the treehouse?
Oh, well, actually, I think this leads on quite well to one I've been sent. So.
Yeah.
Padded cells.
Oh, so for employees?
2 walls of glass and 2 walls of leather padding.
If someone went up to me and said, yeah, my office is great, I've got padded walls, I'm like, you don't work there.
Are you okay, Tom?
I don't think you work there.
It's been described here as having great acoustics for conference calls that doubles as a scream pod.
Scream pod. I love being able to go to work and have just a good scream.
Hey, you know what? If it gets it out your system, it's better than doing it in the car.
Why are we screaming?
It's better than doing it in the car.
Yeah. Okay. Some businesses have had a disco tunnel entrance, suggesting funky offices aid creativity. Disco tunnel.
I'd love a disco tunnel.
Would you? Would you dance your way into work?
Heck yes, I would.
I'd avoid them people like the plague. I
thought
can't
we
be
were
doing with
friends,
it.
Andy.
Yeah, well, after the tunnel.
Oh.
Yeah, disco tunnel entrance.
Yeah.
There's some people you don't need to see dancing.
Imagine having one of your creative meetings in there. Oh, you'd have a great time.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, I'm here for it.
No.
Oh, actually, tell you what, this one's I'm here for. There's a few interesting ones on this one.
Okay.
Massage room.
Oh.
I mean, obviously it's going to be above board. Come on, Andy.
No, I don't mean that. It's just weird though. Some people don't want to be touched.
It's you know what? It's actually much more of a common incentive than you think.
Okay.
Massage rooms, or
Fair.
or at least having somebody that comes in every now and then to offer it as a well-being thing.
Yeah.
Band rehearsal space.
Okay. Okay, fair. I like that because that's like a creative outlet.
Yeah. Games room.
Yeah, I get
I mean,
See a lot of that.
That's given me, creative agency kind of vibes.
Yeah.
Wine cellar. I'm sure that's something you could get on board with, Mr.
okay.
Fowler.
Yeah.
And napping areas.
I would need both. I would need the wine cellar, then the napping area. I think is what I'd want.
I need the rooms to be next to each
I
other,
would need the
please.
wine cellar, and then I would need to go into the band rehearsal space because that's about after the wine cellar. I'll get to that point like, you know what, we should just start a band, and then I'll need a napping bit, and then I think
'Cause of
my
all the
work
drumming that you've done.
My work day's
I'm
done then.
exhausted.
I've got nothing done.
It's time for a nappy naps. 2 Merlots.
Yeah.
Bang on the drums and a snooze.
Yeah.
Lovely. And I've got one here as well. Meetings taking place in gondola lifts. Oh, and slide and fireman pole between floors.
That's got health and safety all over it.
I've actually seen something like this. There was an agency that an old friend of mine worked at in Leeds, so it's where I went to uni, and they had a slide and a ball pit between floors.
It screams cheese to me. Like,
I think it's one of those things where like you'd use it a bit and you're like, ha ha ha, this is
Yeah,
great,
but
and then you'd be like, I'm really over it now.
think of the puns. Hey, Greg, what have you been up to today? Just fighting fires. Get out. Get out. Get in that pulpit and bury yourself.
Just sliding into this meeting.
Oh, yeah. Don't slide anywhere. And then the last one I've got here is disappearing desks. Right, so when office hours are finished, desks can raise up to the ceiling on steel cables until the morning. And when morning comes, they drop down again, and the rest is on cabinets rest on cabinets for stability. I suppose that's an argument for like work-life balance. We put work away. I get that if you're at home. What are you clearing your office for when you leave that at night? What's going on where you don't need the desks?
That's where you clear it for the ball pit and the slide.
Yeah, but that's a different party. That's not work.
This is bringing it back to back down to earth with a bang. The final one that I've got on here is a converted Cold War bunker, 30 metres underground, built right into natural granite.
Wow. Now, one, that's expensive too. You know the boss of that business means business. Is like, he's got a war room.
I was going to say, what kind of business is going to be... Imagine if it was just something like really soft, like, we make children's clothes, but I don't want anyone to see my design, so we're going to hide underground.
And the distribution lorries are on a big war map in the middle, and he's got a stick where he's pushing the lorries like, we're going to get there by midday. We're going to flank them.
We've got to get this to mamas and papas quick.
Yeah.
Times of the essence.
I think there's a middle ground for all of these, but if I ever see a sliding pole and a ball pit, I'm out.
Oh, God, you are boring.
Yeah.
You are boring. You're boring. Boring.
Cool. All right then. Well, I think that ties us up nicely, don't you?
Yeah.
So I think there's some good points there, Emma, what you raised. I think there's a lot more. We could probably talk about it like normal for about 4 more hours, but I really felt like that kind of city impact and cluster stuff.
Yeah.
Because I think the obvious thing you think of when you think of like a location is cost and where are my people coming from and how we commute. But actually, there's a huge cultural element there that a lot of people aren't thinking about maybe, or there's benefits there that might not seem kind of tangible on a spreadsheet, but actually have a cultural impact on how you do the work you want to do.
Oh, for sure.
Cool. So, on that note, if you'd like to hear more about what we do, if you'd like to hear more about the software that we do to help connect people across multiple locations, you can find that on mhrglobal.com, and you can also find us on social media. We're on all of them, I think.
We are.
Brilliant.
Very busy.
So, until then, we'll see you next week, as ever.
As always. Yeah.
I've been Andy.
And I've been Emma.
See you in a bit.
See you later.